So we have an abundance of music this morning, but my question is, what is abundance, right? And we always have an answer in Unity. I'm an abundance teacher for Unity Ministries. I'm writing a book for Unity World Headquarters right now on abundance called Abundant Living, the art and the science of manifestation, right? So I'm really steeped in it right now, but what it really boils down to is this, is that abundance is the constant flow of life, the infinite potential of the entire universe that is contained within you and everything around you. And at Unity, we've always talked about it is God is constantly showering good upon you. God is constantly providing for every one of your needs. And it really makes us really have to step back and say, well, what is this God you're speaking of? To understand, because when I say the universe is providing, or the universe is constantly providing, God is constantly showering, we get triggered into our, childhood. God, white man up in the sky, resting on some cloud with a long white beard coming down to touch that white David's finger and appoint these white people that didn't exist back then in the same way we do today. And we get caught into the theology of our parents, the theology of our culture, and our understanding of the divine in a way that I think limits us and limits the potential we have to experience abundance, to experience all of life in its entirety. The good, the bad, the joyful, the sad, the rich, the poor, the grittiness, the struggle, the accomplishment, the passion, and the purpose of life itself. That's what abundance is for me. And God is just some blanket we throw over this big pile of amorphous unknown and try and give it a name and a shape. And you heard it in the Howard Thurman moment earlier where he said, I don't want to define God. I don't want to limit God. And that's constantly the struggle when I get up here, when any minister gets up to talk to you about what God is. The second we say the word, we limit the possibilities. So I'm going to back up again and say, what is abundance? What is abundance in our life? Because if abundance is an expression of divinity, which I think it is, that the infinite potential, the abundance is the divine at work in our lives, how do we experience it on a daily basis? Abundance may be a box of biscuits for you. It could be a bag of grain. But it is the material world we live in. The very seat you're sitting in, the carpet underneath your feet, the gloriousness of this building, of the sun shining on us. We live in one of the most beautiful cities in the world. For my online folks, I'm sure you do too. I'm sure your city is just spectacular. But I invite you to come here one day and just walk up Page Street and look at all the beauty and the material things that have been created over the last centuries here in San Francisco and marvel that you get to take in all that beauty. And you know what's the best part about the multi-million-dollar mansions on this street and how beautifully they're painted and cared for and curated is we don't have to pay for any of it to enjoy them. We can enjoy them just by walking up the street, which is absolutely free. Because another thing I know about material resources, which we all need to survive, the very air we breathe is material resource, and it is absolutely free. The rain we've been experiencing here in California, the mudslides I experienced on the 101 this week, all of those things are about the abundance of nature, of the material world we live in. And when we look at it, we can see the blessings and the challenges of it. How do we manage all the resources we live in? And that brings us, of course, to the most difficult one, the one that triggers us the most, money. In one of my absolute abundance courses, I always had this exercise, and many of you have seen me do it, where I took out a $100 bill, just like the ones on the screen behind me, and took it and showed it to everybody, and then ripped it into pieces. Ripped it into tiny little pieces. At first, people started screaming, yelling, going, "What a waste! Reverend Ken, you're not being a good steward of the money." But what it showed us is what we really think about money. Because if I asked you right now, what is money? Many of you would answer, well, money is energy. Money is just an exchange. But when I ripped the money apart, people say, you can never replace it. To which I always answered, is that true? Is that money lost forever? Because if money is energy, energy cannot be destroyed, correct? Energy just changes forms. So if I lit a $100 bill on fire in front of you right now, I know several of you would walk out and curse me or talk about me underneath your breath or after. But the money itself is just changing forms. It is theoretically possible. If we gathered all the smoke and the energy released in the flames and gathered it together, we could recreate that $100 bill. And we can, just in our consciousness. So I want to unpack consciousness for you now. Consciousness is thinking plus beliefs. We can have a random thought that crosses our head, and it doesn't become part of our consciousness. But when we have habitual thoughts, and they become our habitual beliefs, that's the consciousness we're living into. And sometimes we live into scarcity consciousness. There's not enough. There's not enough to go around. There's not enough for me. There's not enough for me. And we live in that fear of not having enough to pay our bills, not having enough to eat, not having a roof over our heads, not having the basic necessities of life. And those fears are real, but they're really not predominantly what's going on in most of our lives every day. But we're so habituated to live in that lack consciousness that we make decisions frequently in our lives which aren't for our highest and best because of an old or an inherited lack consciousness, a fear of not having enough. How many people had parents or grandparents who grew up in the Depression? Right? Yeah, look around. It is everywhere. My parents were born into the Depression. My grandparents, it was so steeped in them because they had to raise a family during it. And that understanding of money and that understanding of how to be in the world has permeated most everyone in this room's life. Right? And to think that you're immune to it is to live in denial. Right? Because we are swimming in this water. If we're like a fish in the ocean not knowing what water is, we're just drinking in this idea that there's not enough. What would be possible in your life if you knew at a core gut level that you had all the resources, material resources you need at your disposal to live a prosperous, abundant life? Now, you don't have to know where they're coming from, but just know that good always shows up when you need it. Good always will materialize. It may not materialize on your timetable because the seed must be planted in the soil. The soil must be tended and watered. And then the seed has to sprout and grow and blossom and bear fruit. Divine order, mind, idea, expression is a real thing. But it is a game changer when we can shift our consciousness and know there's more than enough. But abundance isn't just limited to material resources. It's about vibrant health. How many people in here have a diagnosis that they live with on a daily basis? Right? Something that has to be managed. Here's the thing. We're here in this human body, in this human form, having this human experience. I'm trying to model our model right there on the screen. She's fierce, isn't she? Yeah. Warrior pose. When we can know that despite the diagnosis, or sometimes because of the diagnosis, we live into vibrant health. It can be the catalyst to make you make the changes. It is the wake-up call that you need. They're not spirits giving you. I also want to go up with this. I want to tackle this idea that God is giving you this to teach you a lesson. That is some punitive God. We can erase that God from our lexicon and from our consciousness too. Things happen. We have chosen to become part of this human race, this human experience, and learn these human spiritual lessons. And we are the ones who get to decide what it means. If you were here last week for my talk, Spinning Straw into Gold, a diagnosis can be the launching pad to the next phase of your life. 37 years ago, I had to count for a second. 37 years ago, I was diagnosed HIV positive. I've not been sick a day from HIV, but I live with it, and it launched my career in multiple ways. And so I stand here before you today because of what I learned while I was navigating that diagnosis. Finding Louise Hay, Marianne Williamson, Eric Butterworth, Unity, transformed and gave me a life. Your diagnosis has the same potential, whatever it is, to let you live a vibrant and healthy life, a life beyond your wildest dreams. So whether you're born with a condition or you develop one in your life, it is not destiny. It is not determinative. It is just an opinion. And as you shift into it, as you step up to what could be, rather than what the statistics show us is, you are not a statistic. You are not something on a graph. You are an incredible expression of divine energy, and you are not limited by anyone or anything's opinion of your life, right? Abundance is also enriching relationships. I love my relationships here, and God is calling. That God up in the sky with a white beard has a cell phone now, and I hear him somewhere in the room calling one of you. So, excuse me, I digress. Enriching relationships. Sometimes relationships are challenging, right? Marriage, those of you who've been married more than a decade or married more than once or twice or three times, right? Not easy, but they can be enriching when we choose to make them so, when we choose to step into the infinite possibility of the relationship and to see and to engage. People are mirrors for our own stuff. People are here for their own journeys. But when we come together to cooperate, to pray, celebrate, serve, and connect, like our mission statement says, whoa, that's where we transform. That's where the rubber meets the road. One of my friends who had dwarfism, she stood 3'6", was a towering figure, and she was abrasive. She was determined, she was clear, she didn't suffer fools gladly. And I was well sanded by Miss Reverend Joy Weiler, right? In a good way. She made me be better. She used to say, we were in board meetings together, and she'd look at me and she says, well, you could do it that way. And the second I heard that phrase, I knew there was a better way, right? It was just acerbic enough that I didn't get defensive, right? And that's what enriching relationships can do for us, right? They lift us to a new plane, right? A new way of being. This isn't working all of a sudden. Next one, please. Okay, the screen is abundant. Work we love, all right? This guy doesn't look like he's enjoying his work right now, but I am. How about you? Whether you have a job, right? Whether you have a job in the physical world right now or you're retired, you still have something you're about, I hope. I would affirm that you do. Something that's important to you. I like to call it purpose. We live into our purpose. And purpose, let me put it this way. Jobs change. Careers morph. Purpose endures. Purpose is what you're here on the planet to do. And you can do it whether you're collecting money at a cash register in a convenience store on the 101, or you can do it whether you are a hospice worker. You can do it whether you're a prayer chaplain or a hospice chaplain. You can do it as a mother, father, son, daughter, and brother. Your purpose is what makes you come alive in Howard Thurman language. It's what you're here on the planet to be. That's what work you love can do for you. And then there's leisure time. You know, Sabbath, Sunday in the Christian calendar, Saturday in the Jewish and Muslim calendars, and in other all faith traditions talk about rest and Sabbath. It is absolutely essential that we not work 7 days a week, 24/7. We're not meant to do that. That's why we sleep every day. That's why we take a day off every week. It is a spiritual truth that empowers us. And fun and play are part of abundance, and fun and play are part of leisure time. I tell the story in the book that one of my favorite vacations ever, I still remember it, is my husband and my partner at the time, and I flew from New Orleans, where we were on vacation with family, and flew to the Bahamas, where friends had an 80-foot yacht, and four of us, two couples, went out on this 80-foot yacht with two staff members, wave runners on the top, a boat behind us, and we popped from key to key in the Bahamas for 2 weeks, floating around, taking our meals from the fishermen who would come up to the yacht and sell it to us, and darting around the Bahamas. I didn't pay a penny for that vacation. Drinking champagne, having an incredible time, eating lobster for lunch, right? My friends who owned that yacht eventually sold it because, while living on a yacht for a vacation is wonderful, maintaining it and paying for the staff is a whole other issue. But that goes back to the material resources. What are you willing to let into your life? Are you willing to take the generosity? Because we can only be as abundant as we're willing to receive. You get that? You can only experience abundance into the level that you are willing to open yourself to receive it, to receive someone's love, to receive someone's generosity, to receive someone's very presence. And that is when the gift is. And that's what makes abundance. Your willingness to accept it, to accept what is, to accept what people are offering, and to name it and claim it as you take more and more of it in. So this is where the rubber meets the road. This is where this shifts, right? Because this is who we really are. We are worthy. As Misa and the music team just sang, we are worthy of abundance, right? But we don't often feel that. How many people have trouble accepting that we're really, really worthy of all the good in the world? That you're worthy of millions of dollars in the bank. You're worthy of having more than enough. You're worthy of vibrant, healthy, loving, supportive relationships. Yes, right? You are worthy of a life that blows people's minds. When you jet off to go on a yacht vacation, when you go and take a week or a month and just rest, you are worthy of having a body that lifts you up, that is filled with joy, filled with enthusiasm, and that answers to what you want it to do. You are worthy of having all of this in abundance. This is who you truly are. This is who you've come here to be. And nothing you've ever done, nothing you've ever failed to do can take away that strength, can take away that possibility, can take away your birthright. Your birthright. You are born as a magnificent, magnificent expression of divine life. Picture in your mind right now your baby picture. Picture in your mind right now the joy you brought to the world just by being here. Remember that? Remember the stories that your parents have told you or that you've experienced of what it was for your parents to welcome you in? Or if it wasn't your parents who were able to do that for you, then it was grandparents. Or it was an uncle, an aunt, a neighbor who was able to see exactly who you are and change everything. That's the person worthy of abundance. So let go. Let go of the should-haves. Let go of the mistakes. Let go of the people who have told you you're not this enough, you're not that enough, you're too old, you're too young, you're not this, you're not bullshit. I'm just call bullshit on all of that. And we have believed it. I have believed it. I have spent too many years believing the lies that I am not worthy. And I want for each and every one of you to be able to say that, to curse that stuff, to let it go, to let go of the wounds that limit us, so that we can step into abundance, so that we can step into wholeness. We step into the infinite possibility that this life has in store for us. That's what is abundant.